Good morning, and welcome to the fourth episode in our program entitled From Free Will to Freedom. And this one is entitled Service and Prayer. This is the second part of what we did last episode, about a month ago. And if you remember, we received an excellent program or an excellent practice from our master, Dr. George King, on how to do inspirational prayer. In fact, how he does inspirational prayer. So I hope that you had a chance to try this out. It's difficult to do. It's a bit of a bar to get over to do this practice, but it's well worth it if you can possibly stick with it and do it. So on that note, if anyone who has had a chance to try it has any questions or comments on it, I'll be happy to field those at the end of this episode today. Now, last episode I mentioned that I didn't think most people on earth had a tremendous amount of reverence or even respect for those who spend their time on earth giving healing and giving service to others. And I think this is the case. I think people generally look up to musicians, actors, politicians, and the like. And that's just the way it is on earth today. But we're being told by this great karmic lord, Master Amar Sector 6, that service is the most important act that anyone can do on earth today. Service is the greatest religion, the greatest yoga. And this is in stark contrast to what the inhabitants of earth believe and feel. In fact, we're told to serve and take part in the great spiritual battle being waged on earth today. And let's face it, most people don't know that there is a spiritual battle being waged on earth. But this battle is for the new age. It's for raising as many people on earth to enable them to enter this coming new age. And so it is an extremely important battle being waged on earth. And it's being waged on the mental-psychic planes, or the mental realms of earth, if you will. And fortunately for us, the great generals, the great architects of this battle, the spiritual battle for earth, are the great cosmic masters, such as the karmic lord Mars Sector 6, or the Master Aetherius, and others. And some of the officers in this battle that we know of would be the great Lord Babaji, the ascended masters of earth, the spiritual hierarchy of earth, and of course, the adepts. But the main warriors, the people on the front line of this battle are people like you and I, are people that realize that there's a great spiritual need on earth, that it is very important to give service to others in many, many different ways. We are the ones who are on the front line, and we're being told that it's a make or break situation on us. We're the ones that have to produce this energy, invoke this great power to combat this spiritual battle. And on the subject of prayer, most people, or many people anyway, on earth feel that it is pretty useless, doesn't really do very much. It's kind of a crutch that some people need if they're weak. This is a very common understanding of prayer on earth. And yet we are told that prayer, even amongst the different types of service, is one of the most important, if not the most important, act of service that all of us can perform in this spiritual battle. It's such an important tool that we all have. And like any tool, any weapon, it's a spiritual weapon, we need to harness it, we need to hone it, we need to practice it. And this is really what this class today is all about, is prayer and healing, which really is a form of prayer. And one nice thing to know is that a normal weapon on earth, shooting a gun, you can hone and practice, and then you know how to shoot a gun. But if you hone and practice prayer, it's something which will put you in good stead for the rest of your lives on earth and beyond, because you're learning the great lesson of manipulating spiritual power to help others. And what can be better than that? Now, as you know, this is not a class solely, this is also a service. And so to take us into the service aspect and take us to the heights of spirituality we trust, I'll call upon my good friend, colleague, and fellow bishop, the Right Reverend Leslie Young. Please.
Right, Reverend. All right, everyone, let us prepare ourselves with some visualization practice. Let's just close our eyes. Let us become still and make sure we're sitting straight, the feet flat on the floor, our spine straight, and our hands downwards on the knees with the fingers outstretched. And now in our imagination, our only creative faculty, let us look upwards and visualize coming down through the ethers a beautiful pink emanation, a pink flame of spirituality. And bring this pink flame down through the head and take it down through the spine at the back. And at the base of the spine, bring it under the body. Bring it up through the front of the body, right up to the top of the head. And then let us once more take this pink emanation down the spine, bringing it again under the body, up the front of the body, back to the top of the head. Now let us stop this visualization and cast our minds downwards to the holy being beneath our feet, the wondrous planet upon which we live. Send our love deep into the earth, to the very Logos, the living Logos of this earth, and in reverence request from her violet flame of cleansing and transmutation, and visualize this mighty flame rising up from the earth and flowing through our body and aura upwards 10-20 feet above the head, encasing us in this holy flame, transmuting all the dross within the aura. And now let us again look upwards and visualize the power of God as a brilliant white light. And see this white light coming down through the ethers into the top of the head, See this light permeating every cell of the brain. Pure, scintillating white, vibrant white light. Take this flame down through the neck and shoulders and let it flow into the heart center, just in front of the body at the base of the breastbone. Now, for those who've been initiated to mantra, let us join in the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. So the theme of this service class today is prayer and service. And one of the most beautiful ways, really, of using the power of prayer is in the giving of spiritual healing. And we say that this is an aspect of prayer because, of course, the energies that we invoke through prayer are the same energies that we give to the patient when we administer spiritual healing. So instead of sending the power of prayer outwards, as normally happens with prayer, we are concentrating it on an individual. And it's an act of great love and compassion because we are using prayer to help relieve the suffering of another. And it was a very important thing, as far as our master was concerned, a very important part of our spiritual practice. And it is a valuable way, as Right Reverend Brian explained earlier, to actually advance and progress spiritually. Because, of course, when we invoke this wonderful power, it's flowing through our aura, it's helping to balance the psychic centers. And so when we give this energy to a patient, we are, by default, benefiting ourselves from this energy. And as our master explained, it helps us, the healer, spiritually, karmically, mentally, and even physically. It's a very balanced way for us to progress spiritually. It's not a fast path, but it's a very balanced path. And it's one of great compassion for our fellow man. Another benefit of giving spiritual healing is what we may term the feedback loop. Now, as Reverend Brian just said, a lot of people don't believe in the power of prayer. They don't think it does any good. And even people who do believe in prayer often might feel, well, what good is my little single effort? If I'm sending healing, for example, to a place of war or a place where a lot of people are suffering, I don't see an immediate result. We know that all the power, all the spiritual power we can bring into the world is essential and is doing good. We know that, but we don't really often see what good we're doing. But with healing, it's different. When we are giving healing to another, we actually, I think, almost inevitably will feel the power flowing through us. In our method of healing, we use both hands and we send the healing from one hand to the other, and it becomes a very powerful force that you can feel. And what's more, again, it's almost inevitable that while you may not be bringing about an immediate miraculous cure, it's very rare that your patient will not feel the energy, will not feel the benefit of your healing. And when this happens, when you can when you can feel the energy, when you know the patient feels the energy, it gives you a greater confidence. You know that you are actually being a channel for spiritual power, and that it's always going to help. So now we want to play an extract from a blessing given by one of the greatest healers in the history of our world, the great master of love, the Master Jesus, who in his extension of his great teachings that he gave in 1958 through the yogic mediumship of Dr. King, included a blessing to that center of light, which is the group soul of the spiritual healers of our world, as part of his 12 blessings. And we're going to play now an extract from this wonderful blessing to those who heal. So let's now just close our eyes and let's open ourselves to the words, the beauty, the power, the love of the Master Jesus as we hear his voice through Dr. King, delivering a part of this blessing to those who heal. And as we listen, let's visualize the white light pouring forth from the heart center. And if you wish, raise the hands, allowing the power to flow through the palms of the hands as we tune in to the blessing for the healers.
Blessed are those who heal in these days of great pain and suffering. Ofttimes these ones sacrifice their own peace so that others may benefit. Thrice blessed are these ones, for this holy sacrifice. For I say unto you, man, he who, in total a disregard of a universal suffering, doth search in these days for peace, will find it not. For alas, ye are commanded, even now, as ye were yesterday, to spread yourselves in sacrificial action throughout your suffering world. Thrice blessed are those who do this, are those who work for no reward in this earth in order to bring some a peace of mind to those who suffer. Blessed are the ones who lay their hands upon the fevered brow of their brothers, knowing that their request will be answered, knowing that great power will flow through them like water through a river course. Blessed are these ones, for they are living their belief.
Let us all join together in the prayer that follows this blessing. O divine Lord of all wondrous creation, we raise our voices and minds to you now in prayer, knowing, even as we do, that this is answered at this moment. O wondrous God, we ask that the hearts and minds of man might be opened to thy presence, to thy mighty light, so that they may forever glorify thee, so that they may realize that within them beats a spark directly connected to thy wondrous heart. We raise our minds in thankfulness for the fulfillment of our prayer, for this shall come to pass upon this earth. Let us lower the hands, and I hand you back to Right Reverend Brian.
Thank you, Your Grace. We're now going to cycle back to listen to another extract from this so important freedom, the third freedom, as given by the Karmic Lord Mars, Sector 6, on service. So let's prepare ourselves. Sit up straight, the feet flat on the floor, eyes closed, shoulders relaxed, hands downwards on the knees. Prepare yourself to listen to this great wisdom given to earth by the great karmic lord, Mars Sector 6, proclaiming the importance of service.
Serve in the great spiritual battle, and you can walk with head high and stand in any hall unafraid to read what be written there. The greatest yoga is service. The greatest religion is service. The greatest act is that act done in service. Kill possession. Transmute selfishness into service for others, and your reward will come. Enlightenment, like the break of dawn upon the darkest night, will cast the shadows of this night before it. Serve, and you will become enlightened. Serve, and you will be practicing true selfless love. Serve, and the mighty power of Kundalini will rise in natural, unforced fashion and open the chakra jewels in your higher bodies. In will pour inspiration, and you will be standing on the verge of the initiation into adeptship.
You know, many on earth are looking for the meaning of life, what they should be doing, the purpose, something to give their life purpose. And in this short extract, it answers those questions. It clearly tells us what we should be doing on earth today. And it isn't even that complicated. Serve. Help your brothers and sisters. And in doing so, you will be accomplishing the one thing that we're told is the most important lesson, if not certainly the main lesson on earth, which is the harnessing, control, and raising of the power of Kundalini. And interestingly enough, once we learn that this is the most important thing to do on earth, we're told, don't focus on that. And it illustrates one of the great subtleties that pervades the universe. There's often a great paradox to truth, and this is one of them. We understand that the most important thing that we have to learn on earth is the control and raising of the Kundalini, and we're told that the way to do it now is to not focus on it, but instead to focus on the suffering of our brothers and our sisters on earth. And through that, we are not holding ourselves back. We're not slowing ourselves down, but we're speeding up our evolution. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're learning to be junior gods, you might say. And there's many ways of serving, of course. Just like forms of yoga, certain forms of yoga are quicker in learning the concentration and learning to open the psychic centers. Also, different forms of service, of course, will be quicker and more potent. And one of the most important and potent forms of service is indeed the power of prayer. So we're now going to listen to Dr. King give a little more detail of how this is important and how this affects the raising of the Kundalini.
Now, dynamic prayer too can cause a raise of Kundalini. Through service, you're using this power of Kundalini all the time. And the more you use it, the more is available for use, surprisingly enough. Even some of the Indians didn't understand Kundalini. The more you use it, the more is available for use. And the more you use it, the more you will be able to control it. Even if you don't do so consciously. In this life or two, there'll come a life when you will be able to raise it up and down in full consciousness. Dynamic prayer is one way in which some of the power of Kundalini is risen not to a low center, but to a higher center, where it manifests itself as pure spiritual energy on spiritual planes.
So here we're seeing a bit more focus, a bit more understanding of how service, certainly this type of service, can raise the Kundalini. So rather than going to a retreat away from the world, away from society, and focusing on the mechanics of opening up and raising the Kundalini, we're told to instead stay in the clatter of mankind, stay in the cities and help and send out your love. And as you send out your prayer, you're accessing this power of Kundalini. You're demanding it to raise because you're using it in a selfless manner. And what a great way of raising the Kundalini, because you aren't doing it for yourself. You're demanding it to raise because you're trying to help others as much as you possibly can. And the more powerful that you can send out energy through love and healing and prayer, then the more you'll be demanding, you'll be pulling up this energy of Kundalini. And what a fantastic way of doing it. Now, I mentioned before in the last episode that there's two main forms of prayer that Dr. King talks about. One is the inspirational prayer, where you decide where to send this energy. You decide that there's suffering in Yemen and you want to send your energy to Yemen, or your Aunt Mabel has got a back problem, or anything in between. And this is inspirational prayer, and so we're not going to go so much into that this class. We're going to go more onto what Dr. King calls set prayers. And these are prayers that are previously written, and this particular set, of course, that we use the most in the Aetheric Society is this beautiful set of prayers called the 12 Blessings, which you heard a part of one just earlier. And in the 12 Blessings, you are allowing the Master Jesus to guide your prayers, to guide your energy being sent to the world. And so we'll break that down a little bit. So let's say you want to send your energy to the group soul of they who heal. And so just like you've got an aura, a soul, your family has got like a group aura or a group soul, you can think of it. The Etheric Society has a group soul. All the members are kind of attached to this metaphysical entity on a higher plane. It's like a group soul of the Etheric Society, a group soul of a country, and all the healers. Everyone who gives healing has a group soul. So everyone's attached to this entity, this group soul in the higher planes. And so if you send your energy to this group soul, then you are helping everyone on earth who is giving healing. And that really is what we're doing in the 12 blessings. We're sending energy to all the beings. The first 6 blessings are energy is being sent to all the beings who are helping in one way or another this great spiritual battle on earth. You've got they who work for peace, the healers, the wise ones, they who love, the thanksgivers, the planetary ones. You're sending this energy to uplift, strengthen, protect, and spiritualize all these great, wonderful people or individuals who are helping the world at this time. So that's one prong of the attack in the 12 blessings. The other prong, of course, are the next 7 blessings, where you send energy to the Mother Earth all the way up to the Absolute itself. And here we're sending energy to these great beings that allow us to have this time on earth to experience life and to grow and to evolve. And by the law of karma, we get energy back from these entities, but not just to us, but because we're acting on behalf of mankind. We are part of the group soul of mankind. So this energy comes back to uplift, strengthen, and raise mankind. That's the second prong of this brilliant technique, this brilliant ritual of the Master Jesus. And the third, of course, after many of the prayers, all except one of the prayers, are designed to uplift and heal and help mankind, humanity, to understand that they are a part of God, to feel their spark within, to feel the energy flowing through them. And so in this case, we're sending energy directly to mankind, our brothers and sisters. And that's the third prong of this attack, to help save our world. And because it's such a beautiful and balanced and powerful ritual, every time anyone performs the 12 blessings, it accumulates, it adds, it builds onto this great visualization of the Master Jesus. And especially when you perform the 12 blessings in a spiritual push, it's amplified thousands of times as well. So you can start to see the thinking, the beauty, the power behind this great spiritual battle that we are all a part of if we choose to be. Now, one important aspect of prayer, as Her Grace mentioned earlier, was that with healing you can very often feel the energy flowing through you. And that's one of the keys with prayer. It's one of the signposts so that you know that you are developing, that you know that things are happening, that you know that your prayers are getting more and more powerful, is you can start to feel more and more. You might feel a coldness, a heat, an energy, a thickness in your hands or the heart center, and you start to feel different things. But I do want to put out this caveat that sometimes you don't. Or certainly in the beginning, you might not. And I can relate to that. Because when I first became a member of the Etheric Society way back last century sometime in 1976, believe it or not, I went to a pilgrimage to Mount Adams with the Michigan branch, some members of the Michigan branch, and I drove all that way, and I climbed up this pretty difficult mountain, and up there sending out great power and energy with the 12 blessings. I felt absolutely nothing. Zero. I didn't feel the slightest tingle anywhere in my hands. Nothing. Zero. Right? So that's okay. That's good. It's a nice experience. I knew it was happening, but I felt zero. So, but I stuck with it, and now I feel energy pretty much every time I send out prayers or mantras or healing. So it does happen. But it is important to focus on that feeling, focus on that vision if you see better than you can feel, because that will guide you to increasing your power, increasing the energy that's flowing through you. And this was taught to me very pointedly one time with our master, Dr. King. I would give him healing quite a bit in the last several years of his life on Earth. And I would use a thing I developed called the points, and I would send energy through my fingers into different acupuncture points. And they helped him a lot. He asked them sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a day. He would ask me to do this. And he wasn't always thanking you or telling you anything. He would just want the points, and you'd give him the points, and he'd thank you, and then you'd go on about your business. But one time, I was giving him these points, and I was in his living room. I was on my knees, and I was putting energy through his knees. A particular point, I think it's ST21, and the energy was going in there, and something happened, and I felt just tremendous more energy flowing through me than ever before, and I literally felt in my mind for sure that if I wanted to, I could, with my fingers just touching his knees, I could easily lift him up and move him wherever I wanted to move him. I wouldn't do that. And I probably couldn't do that, but that's the way I felt. So much energy was going through, I felt that I could easily have done that. So I felt this tremendous change, tremendous difference in the amount of energy that was going through me on that occasion. And, again, completely out of character, Dr. King, at the end, he opened his eyes and he said to me, "I don't know what you did there, boy, but you put me on another plane." And it really confirmed that this feeling that I had was not just in the mind, it really was energy flowing through. And so the point I bring this up is that pay attention to your feelings, pay attention to what you feel going through, and try and adjust your practices or adjust your thinking or adjust your visualization, make little adjustments so that you feel more and more energy going through. And that will be a way that you, because let's face it, we are all our best and most important gurus. And so we have to learn to evolve ourselves. And this is one way that you can make your prayers and your healing that much more potent. Now, some ask, how does the energy get to Aunt Mabel, for example? And it's all about the Devic kingdom, or the nature spirits. And we're going to go into that in a later episode of this series, but I just want to briefly touch upon it here. And that is when you send out your energy to Aunt Mabel, the energy will be picked up by the Devic kingdom, or the nature spirits, and they will get that power to Aunt Mabel. Or if you're sending it to people who are suffering in Yemen, they will take the energy to Yemen and they will get it to the people in the most need, shall we say. That's their job. Their job is to manipulate power. And specifically on Earth, their job is to manipulate power created or passed through mankind. And we often think about it with prayers, of course. But if you think about it, anytime you think a thought, that's energy, that's power. If you get mad at someone, that's power. If you send your love to someone, that's power. And if you think about it, it really defines the battle lines on this great spiritual battle of earth. And I mentioned it was on the mental planes. You gotta realize that if you think about the world and what's happening everywhere on the world, let your mind go through the news cycle, for example. There's not a lot of great, positive, uplifting, spiritual thoughts out there. Some, but a lot of it is negative and selfish and hateful and very, very dark energy, right? And there's a lot fewer people sending out light energy, and that's the problem. And so it's up to us as light workers to develop our abilities to send out light, to hone these abilities, and to actually sit down, take the time, realize that the most important thing that you're doing in the course of a day is sending out light. It's not the groceries, not your job, your family, sending out light. And when you do this during a spiritual push, it's multiplied 3,000 times. And you can start to see the workings of this great plan. But we are, you could arguably say, the most important aspect of this plan. We have to do it ourselves. We can be helped a lot, and we are, of course. But the bottom line is we, on earth, the light workers, have to do the heavy lifting, really. We have to do the hard work. Now, as exciting and interesting and fantastic as prayer is, as we've described, you will be very happy to know that there are even more powerful tools in the spiritual chest of the New Age workers. And one of the most important ones which we have access to, and in fact all the members of the Aetherius Society and beyond have access to, is this great spiritual mission given to us by our spiritual master, His Eminence George King, called Operation Prayer Power. And we will call upon our favorite bishop here to tell us all about that.
I'm not actually so much planning to tell us all about it, because I'm actually going to leave that to our master, because he tells it a lot better. But Operation Prayer Power, just briefly, is most powerful tool combining prayer and service for pretty much any of us to use. And it was devised by our master, who is a genius in the science of radionics, the manipulation and control of subtle or spiritual energies. And in Operation Prayer Power, he devised the way of harnessing the power of prayer, of our prayer, of the prayer of just very ordinary people, and basically storing it into a physical radionic battery, so that you have, through this, a storehouse of tremendous power, our prayer energy, and it can be raised by its compression in a battery. It can be raised onto an even higher level of frequency. And it's what we call a tool or an instrument of mass healing, even of world healing. But I'd like now to invite you to listen to our master, who made this recording when Operation Prayer Power began in 1973, and explaining what it is. And at the end of this, we're showing you, just very briefly, Operation Prayer Power in action here in our temple. So I invite you now to listen to our Master.
Operation Prayer Power is an operation which everybody can join into. It's specially designed for Mr. and Mrs. Everyman, or at least those who are spiritually inclined. As you all know, prayer does work. You know this in your everyday lives. You've proved it. Many and many a time you've sent healing to your children, to your relatives, and this healing, this prayer healing, has worked. Throughout the centuries before now, prayer healing has even confounded medical science. Up to this time, prayer was an individual thing, sent out by individuals for an individual response. But now we're going to make prayer so much more potent for you all. When you pray, you send out a very marvelous spiritual energy. If 100 of you pray at different times, then there's 100 points of radiation of spiritual energy. But supposing those 100 people come together and focus their spiritual energy on one particular point, you have then prayer which is highly concentrated, because it is directed into one particular target area. In Operation Prayer Power, I have invented a mechanism which will store prayer energy for future use. And the benefit of this is obvious. If there is an earthquake in the world, or a famine, or a flood, we can store energy before this happens, and we can release this immediately it happens, so that the victims of these catastrophes can have some relief by the energy of our harmonizing prayers. Here we have a model of a battery. This battery is specially made. As a matter of fact, it takes a long time to make it. It's all hand-built, and this here covers the connector, where this battery can be connected up to quite an unusual mechanism. And this mechanism can draw from the battery the prayer energy that you put into the battery. At the bottom of the battery, you see a white oblong. This is the target area. In Operation Prayer Power, prayers are asked to come together and direct their prayer energy into this target area. When it enters through the special device of this target area, it's then contained in the crystalline substance in the rest of the battery. Now, it may take up to 500 or 600 hours to actually charge this battery with your prayer energy, but it can be released in 20 to 30 minutes. So the benefit of Operation Prayer Power can be seen immediately. Not only do we have prayer energy when we want it, when we really need it, but we have it where we want it, where we need it, and in a highly concentrated form. If it takes 100 of you 10 hours each, which makes 1,000 prayer hours, to charge this little battery, and the energy can be released in 30 minutes, you can see that it contains a tremendous concentration of your prayer energy. Now, Operation Prayer Power is no longer a theory. As a matter of fact, it's actually started. It started in England on June the 30th, 1973, when more than 200 people went up to Holston Down in North Devonshire, and they said mantra and they said prayer for 3 solid hours, making the equivalent of 600 man-hours of prayer, which is already contained in one of our spiritual energy batteries. As far as America is concerned, Operation Prayer Power will start in America officially on September the 23rd, 1973. And in America, it will start in Arizona on the side of a psychic center of the earth, which is a very holy, very sacred, and very potent spot, as indeed is Holston Down in North Devonshire. Now, all people are asked to come together to cooperate in Operation Prayer Power for the benefit of mankind. This is not an individual thing. We haven't got time any longer, friends, to be too individual. Selfishness must be dispensed with. We must come together as spiritual workers in light and cooperate in a spiritual cause, in a spiritual way, so that our prayer energy is highly potentized and so that it can be directed in the right way so that it works for the benefit of suffering mankind. You know as well as I do that time and time again we hear of catastrophe. Time and time again we only wish, all of us wish, that we could do more for the victims of catastrophe, whether it be the aftermath of a nasty war, a revolution, a belligerent uprising of some kind, an earthquake, a famine, a flood. We all wish we can do more. Well, if we're dissipated in our efforts, we will never really do what we can do. But if we join together in a spiritual brotherhood, in a spiritual cause, then our joint efforts can be a mighty force in this world. You know, the power that you release by your unselfish prayers is called love. And the prayers in the 12 blessings are prayers of understanding, wisdom, and love. And these are the prayers that we will use in Operation Prayer Power. Very balanced prayers given by that great and wonderful Master of love and light, the Master Jesus himself. And we couldn't have a better master to give prayers than that one. When we use his prayers in a joint spiritual combined effort, and we concentrate this prayer energy in one of our batteries, and later we discharge that battery to the world, we release a tremendous and wonderful spiritual power. At this time, the Aetherius Society is appealing for cooperation in Operation Prayer Power, not for ourselves, not for any individual in the society, but for the world as a whole, because the world as a whole has tried science, they've tried drugs, they've tried politics, but they haven't tried prayer. Not in this way they haven't. Let's come together and let us really join our hands, our spiritual hands, together in this way and send this tremendous energy surging through the earth, so that wherever there is great suffering and despondency, this energy of prayer will act as a harmonizing balm to help heal the suffering.
This brilliant power of Almighty God. And bring this down the neck, round the shoulders, and out into the heart center.
Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum.
Monument at the crossroads of their inspiration.
We pray that your light may shine through us all, so that we may transmit this unto the world.
Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum.
Now, we're very blessed on this earth that throughout the ages, greater beings have been helping us and are helping us. And certainly in these days on earth, these kind of final days, or these days of transition, these days of great change, of conflict and upheaval, the greater ones are looking for any spots of light through which to bring their help and encouragement and whatever they can do to help spirituality grow on earth, they will do without interfering per se in our karma. And we do have help in Operation Prayer Power. Of course, as Right Reverend Brian said, we have to do the work, but there are greater ones who help to make the mission even more powerful. And it was recognized by greater beings almost from the beginning, because it has such a tremendous spiritual potential. And just, what was it? I guess it was 3 years after it began, in 1975, the great Lord, the Karmic Lord Mars Sector 6, who we heard earlier on and giving an extract from the Third Freedom, accepted Operation Prayer Power as a part of the great plan for the spiritual evolution of this earth. And a couple of years after that, he made the arrangement that our prayer energy would be used to supplement energies radiated from satellite number 3 during a spiritual push. I'm not sure if we've covered satellite number 3 greatly yet, but we will be in a future class, because this is a very important part of divine intervention in these days. And then in 1978, we received a transmission from the great master after whom we're named, the Master Aetherius, emphasizing the importance of Operation Prayer Power, and this was called an important declaration of truth to terror. What we were told by the Master Aetherius is that Operation Prayer Power had been accepted and lodged in the records of the highest authorities in this solar system, what we call the Supreme Council, and that had now become an essential part of the evolution of life on Earth. This is one of the, well, for most of us, ordinary people, it's the greatest opportunity we have to be of really potent and valuable service to the world, to the future of the world. In fact, the Master Aetherius said that Operation Prayer Power itself will change the history of this earth. For those people who are the prayers, who directly put the energy into the battery, they are always striving to improve their prayers, to make them as potent as possible. And we're going to play for you now an extract of an address that our Master gave to help the prayer team members to lift their prayer output that much higher. So let us listen to our Master.
A word to the prayer teams. You too have a tremendous responsibility. In fact, you have a greater responsibility than the mantra teams in one way. When you walk in front of that battery, and if I were to ask most of you what you're concentrating on, you'd say the prayer. The answer would be wrong. Probably true, and that's what makes it all the more wrong. You should be concentrating on the prayer, the energy field in which you are operating, and the transmission of that energy. That's what you should be concentrating on, beyond any shadow of any doubt, and I know that some of you are not doing this. You're going up there and you're really putting your heart and soul into your prayer. That's holding the whole of your concentration. So be aware of the energy field. You're walking in an energy field. The energy field is created by the mantra team, and you too have created another energy field within that. If you could see it psychically, it would be like a mushroom of energy. Oddly enough, some mantras form an energy field almost the exact shape of an atomic explosion. Anybody's psychic. If you're not, well, get psychic then. And look at these things for yourself, for heaven's sake. Some of you have been with us long enough to be psychic. And you'd see kind of a pillar come up and then a mushroom begin to form. That is the energy field in which you are operating. And you're creating your own energy field within that. Now, your energy field is a different shape, but it can amalgamate with the other energy because it's fairly well on the same vibrational level. It amalgamates with the other energy, travels through you and into the battery. And that's what it's all about. And it does work. The mantra teams create quite a powerful energy field. And the prayer teams create very powerful little energy field around them. Be aware of what you're doing. All the time be aware of it. You're operating in an energy field. And you've got to get that energy through that little aperture.
It's a great thing that Dr. King gave us this way of pushing ourselves even further in Operation Prayer Power. And it really is exhilarating. If you talk to any prayer team member in Operation Prayer Power, it's hard work. It takes a lot of practice. But the feeling you get afterwards it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling after you've done prayer in those energy fields. It really is wonderful. But for this class, we wanted to give a way forward for everyone. And we wanted to pray, to teach dynamic prayer, but in the beginning way, so that we can all get on the same page and just increase our ability ourselves wherever we are, even if we aren't close to an Operation Prayer Power session. And Leslie and I thought about demonstrating it for everyone. But fortunately, I discovered an address many, many years ago by our master, Dr. George King, I think back in 1962, I believe, where he teaches at the end of this address how to perform dynamic prayer. And I thought you might just prefer that to myself or even Leslie. So we're going to listen to Dr. King give a short 4-minute and 40-second description, beautiful description of dynamic prayer with the 12 blessings. And you'll see that this is just as appropriate for someone who hasn't even learned the prayers by heart yet. It will still be applicable to those who are reading it. So let's all listen to this wonderful, wonderful spiritual master explaining how to pray dynamically.
Dynamic prayer and doing the blessings dynamically isn't shouting out the text. Neither is it reading the text like this. Blessed are the thanksgivers. That's not dynamic. Dynamic prayer doesn't come from the throat, but from the heart. You heard a prayer this morning which came from the heart, not from the throat. Dynamic prayer is to feel the blessing when you read it, if you read it. And try to feel it with your heart, not so much with your mind. You cannot feel it unless you really understand it. So study it beforehand. Do it justice. It's a book given by Jesus, you know. It's not a novel written by a non-entity, whoever he might be on earth. I think that this is a dynamic way to read out this prayer. O divine Spirit of everlasting life. No shouting, you know, but I mean the words everlasting life. Let the mighty power of thy love flow forth into all the peoples of the world. I really want this love to flow forth into the peoples of the world. And I'm not shouting it. And yet it's quite dynamic. So that they may be risen up to realize their divinity. A stress on a word. Not their divinity. Might be so that they may be risen up to realize that they take size 9 shoes. Their divinity. It's a stress on a word. It comes from the heart because I believe in what the word divinity stands for, the divinity of man. So that they may live and act in this light. Not switch on the light, but light. This is another kind of light. This is an all-pervasive, all-knowledgeable kind of light which comes from the heart of the very essence itself. Light. See, you feel this word. It means something to you. To let this light flow forth forever through them. Almighty God. Not Almighty God. You might say, Toby, come here. Puss. Really, this is true. Almighty God. It's a mantra. Roll it. Feel that you're talking to something that's out there and yet part of you at the same time. There will be no barriers now. Now, short, sharp, brusque, definite. There will be no barriers now. Try to do this. Try to practice with this. Those people who have had any stage training at all will probably find it easier because you've been trained to put emphasis in certain ways. You've probably been trained to do this for the wrong motive. Now use it for the right motive, that of sending out power. Those people who haven't had any training such as this at all can virtually train themselves.
So I think Dr. King did a fantastic job there, and so rather than do it here, as most of you, almost everyone, is through that camera there, so rather than do this practice here live, we're going to actually give this as a homework assignment. And so you can listen to this several times. It is stored on the website, so you can listen to, especially this part, these last few minutes, and really get a feel for the way Dr. King performs his prayer. And try and I think whether you've just discovered the 12 blessings or you've been practicing it for 40 years, I think we can all tweak our prayers in the light of what His Eminence tells us here. But just a recap for the technique of prayer, of course you want to have the hands raised, not super tight but not too relaxed, but kind of like that. And you want to open up the heart, so you want to get the energy flowing. You want to ask Almighty God or Mighty Brahma, whatever source you choose, ask for this energy to flow through you, and then get this white light flowing through you. And then you perform the 12 blessings or a prayer, whatever you choose to do. And then we get to the finishing part. Once you've finished your 12 blessings or finished your prayer, then we've got another beautiful extract from our master explaining how to finish off your prayer and the importance of finishing off your prayer. Let's play that one. It's about 3 minutes.
After you have said your prayer, whether it be for your friend's health, your own health, or for the health of the world as a whole, for world peace and so on, after you've said this, don't forget to wind it up properly. Don't forget ever to give thanks to. Some people give thanks to God. Other people give thanks to Brahma. A lot of people who do the 12 blessings gives thanks to Jesus. Whatever it is, whatever you choose to give thanks to, whatever higher source it is, give thanks to it. Or, in the case of Jesus, Him. Send out your thanks. Because you see, you have sent energy outwards. And that to you has been a great privilege. It's a great, or should be considered a great privilege, to be used as a channel for energy. So, send thanks. Now you might say, well, what does Jesus want my thanks for? Well, of course, He doesn't. what does God want my thanks for? Well, of course, it doesn't want your thanks at all. But by giving thanks in the right way, you've done something far more important than thanks. You've set a seal on something. For instance, your friend is sick. You send out prayer. You give thanks afterwards for being allowed to help your friend. And then you finish your prayer and you forget all about it. Don't you see, you've wound up the little paragraph in your life. You've put the last full stop in, because your thanks, what you've really done psychologically by giving your thanks is this. You have said, I have faith in the fact that this prayer will work. I mean, why give thanks for anything unless you have received something? So, by giving thanks, you just finish that little bit off.
And then the final act in finishing up your prayer or mantra or whatever you're doing is to use this mudra, which you cut the energy off physically. So you go like that. Put these two hands together, go like that. And Dr. King will often say, once you've done that, you say, it is done. And that completes your ritual of sending out energy, in whichever way you wish to do it. Now that brings us to the close. So let's all come together. Place the left hand on the solar plexus, the right hand over the left. And think down to the wondrous Mother Earth and humbly request her violet flame of transmutation to flow upwards through the feet, legs, body, upwards into the heart center. Really see and feel this energy of the wondrous Mother Earth flowing upwards, filling your heart center. And then humbly request from Almighty God a brilliant white light coming down through the ethers of space, entering the head and brain. Feel this great power, this great light vibrating there. And bring this energy down the neck, shoulders, and out into the heart center, just in front of the breastbone. And then amalgamate the white light, the violet flame in the heart center, and offer these two great forces in sacrifice out into this golden sphere, this spark of God within. Let these energies flow upwards out into this golden sphere. And then humbly request from this spark of God, the golden rays of spirituality, to flow down from this beautiful golden sphere, downwards, filling the head, brain, body, aura. Fill yourself with this beautiful golden essence. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thy will, O mighty God, be done.